All right, sorry about my live experiment. The meeting is now being recorded again, and it looks like everybody's back online, and we'll practice live streaming some other time.
Appreciate the effort, Mindy. All right. Bitch Gabrielson.
Well, I'm Butch Gabrielson, 1324 Adams, Ward 2. I was going to talk about St. Vincent, but I guess they pulled out of the offer. But after the last council meeting, I took an opportunity and went up and toured that. It wasn't quite what their presentation gave. It's like when they showed their not office, but their meeting place up there, had one guy sitting at a table, new shirt on, and that was it. But I don't know if you people have had the opportunity to go up there, but you need to go up there and go in there, and the one on Garfield, and then go around and talk to the neighbors and talk to the businesses in that area. There's numerous businesses that have left there. Well, I talked to one of the owners there. It just happened to be looking at their building. They went away from their building 2 months ago. They broke into it, stole all the wiring out of it, and there's about 10 of them living in it. So, you know, there's a lot more to this homeless thing than just being homeless. I think they thrive on being non-productive and destructive. But anyway, I seen that show they put on, and I don't know if anybody else noticed, but in their tents, there was nobody around those tents that they showed in the warehouse. Not a soul in that picture. The tents were brand new. They don't look that way now. They wouldn't let me go inside, but I could see in there. In their camp there on Garfield, disaster, just like one you got over here. So when you, I don't know what these towns that have dusk till dawn seem to do pretty good. I think one of the reasons is they got to pack their stuff up and move every day. I mean, we got residents in our camps that have been there for how long? And they just bring more stuff in. And you know what the cleanup on that's going to be? The people that voted that in. You know what the cleanup on Highway 99 is going to be? You need to check into that. But anyway, I don't know what the answer to homeless is, but St. Vinny's, they're the nonprofit business, but they operate just like any other business. And so they all operate on volume and clientele. And if you let them come down, which they said they're not coming now, but their volume is people, and that's their clientele. And so then they can ask for more money from the federal government, from the taxpayer, to support these people. And they want it to grow. They don't want it to go away.
Thank you, Butch.
Dawned on anyone?
All
But
right.
anyway, the way you guys put this homeless thing to us.
You got to wrap it up, Butch.
Hmm?
You got to wrap it up. Your timer.
Oh,
went.
okay. But the way you presented this homeless to the public is just like when my mom used to give me medicine. She'd hold my nose, stick it in my mouth, and make me swallow it. And that's just what you people did.
Thank you. Patrick Cartwright. Okay. Jeff Harlands. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, State Council. So I'm kind of here to talk about the recall mailouts and all the texts we've received in the mail lately. Basically, we have a lot of outside interference and influence there. Here's one of them here. Here's another one here and another one here. And I probably threw away at least a dozen as well. Not to mention the texts that I receive on a unlisted cell phone number. And what's the real agenda of the Eugene Realtors PAC? especially when you find out that Len Blackstone and the Hemingways and I think Higgins is all involved on it too. So, you know, we've got a lot of people here in town. What's the agenda of a realtor being involved in a homeless recall? So much for input from our own city's functions. The town in general is absolutely done with these ideas that we have and the homeless problem and how it affects in day-to-day items that we have and what it brings to our town. Our services are limited on and they're just maxed out on all the ODs. I think we had 4 last week. I think yesterday, the day before, one individual had to be hit with 6 cans of Narcan before he came to. I mean, please, you know, that's just nonsense. The neighborhoods literally are feeling abandoned, especially over on Douglas there. I've driven by these places. I've driven into these areas, and it's like, you know, it's just crazy. It's like a war zone, and I've seen those. You know, so it's basically they feel abandoned. Their voices aren't being heard. You know, we should also have a vote. It doesn't matter now. St. Vinny's is over, so I won't go with that. But people seem to have no confidence in this council to act out on the city taxpayers' benefits. You know, as far as you know, and I just seem to have no confidence in this council to act in our best interest. We need to figure out a way to get rid of the non-Grovers who are in our homeless camps and send them packing back to their own towns and focus on our own if we really want to help. I bet you if you go in and you take a head count, you're going to find that there's probably 70% that don't even belong to Cottage Grove. They're from Sutherland, they're from Eugene, they're from Oak Ridge, they're from around here, but they have no business in our town using our services. As far as the putting them out there to the discourse and the wastewater area for camp, that's crazy. Also, we have almost $30,000 spent from the outside special interest groups and the Eugene Realtor PAC. I didn't know we needed a war chest to finance this whole thing. I got a couple friends in Eugene I could probably scrape up 50 or 60 grand from. So, I mean, I don't know, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but thanks for hearing me.
Thank you.
All right.
Bonnie Sano.
My name is Bonnie Sano, and my home is a Cottage Grove address. I am really irritated. I went to my mailbox yesterday and I had 3 flyers from the Realtors Association, not the Realtors Association of Cottage Grove. One of them did state it was the Realtors Association of Eugene. The rest just said Realtors Association. Was that in DC? How far are you going to get support for a no vote? I saw some messages out on the sidewalk accusing Joanna Z for organizing the recall. She did not. It was citizens of this town. I would like to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, our mayor was one of the few counselors before we had a homeless camp that questioned the wisdom of housing first. She only has 1 vote. She can't do this all by herself. Secondly, I'd like to remind you of the gratitude of those in the camp. I remember a day when it was really hot and the citizens of Cottage Grove were complaining about their exorbitant water bills. And one of the camps turned on their water full blast and had a slip and slide. Thanks. Some of you have said that this recall is so expensive. Well, you didn't have to spend a dime. It was us citizens that wanted a recall. I see that we were an all-American city back in 68 and 2004. It's going to be a long time before we're an all-American city again, thanks to y'all.
Hey, guys. We can refrain from clapping. Cindy Bangston?
There, thank you for hearing me. I am a resident of Cottage Grove in Ward 2. And what I mainly wanted to talk about was the proposed, possibility of that homeless camp that was going to be nearby, taking place on the disc golf course. I have young grandchildren that come and visit, and honestly, to fear for them to even walk down to Safeway, even during the day, by themselves is real. Not just the presence, but the things that come with it are worry, an influx of roaches, bed bugs, drug paraphernalia, crime. There's so many things that come along with it. And then with these flyers from Eugene Realtors, just make it feel like they're trying to funnel all of the homeless into our little town, and we're just too small. We don't have the resources, and we don't have the land volume. There's not enough to support the influx of something like that. And I think there's clear view that most of the points of it would be a negative for us. But I appreciate you hearing me.
Thank you. Tanya Myers?
Hello. Does it go down? Is it good? Okay.
Good evening, members of the City Council and fellow Grovers. My name is Tanya Myers, and I reside within city limits, Ward 2. My husband and I closed on our home March 13th, 2020, same day as the COVID shutdown. Shortly thereafter, the city decided to allow unhoused to camp out behind my house. The city made this decision without notifying me, the residents in the neighborhood, giving no regard to our health, our safety, or sanity. In the beginning, I reached out to the unhoused residents residing behind my house, offering friendship, tents, sleeping bags, clothes, food, toiletries. It was incredibly stressful listening to the constant fighting, watching first responders battle an endless barrage of overdoses and other crises. There was a man I had befriended living on the loading dock to the library, and we shared many conversations, and I'm fairly certain I gave him his last dinner before he overdosed. It became apparent to me that all the giving was actually hurting these unfortunate folks. This enabling causes them to stay stuck because there is no rock bottom or incentive to change to do better. The city's decision to allow unhoused camping without proper notification or consideration for the residents has had a significantly negative impact on our quality of life and well-being. Enabling self-destructive behaviors without accountability or providing proper support and resources can sometimes perpetuate the cycle of homelessness and prevent individuals from making positive changes in their lives. It's essential for the city council and community members to work together to find solutions that prioritize the well-being and safety of all residents, while also addressing the needs of those experiencing homelessness. It's imperative that existing city ordinances and laws are enforced, that our police force is allowed to do their job. Transparency is vital to rebuilding trust between the taxpayers and the city. Putting a third party in charge of our homeless crisis is like hiring the outside firm to locate and hire a city manager. Dismal at best. I also come before you today to express my deep concerns regarding the recall of 3 of our city council members, Alex Dreyer, Chalice Savage, and Mike Fleck. The decisions we make today will shape the future of our community. And it is imperative that we consider all aspects of this recall with the utmost care and diligence. The unhoused crisis has been poorly deployed and managed, and the crisis is destroying our community, and I, as a taxpayer, have had enough. All the poor decisions that have been made were done so without due diligence and the inclusion of taxpayers. It has come to my attention that 2 of the counselors, Alex and Chalice, have been dedicating a significant amount of time, money, and efforts towards political endeavors outside of Cottage Grove with the aim of advancing their own political aspirations. While ambition is admirable, it is crucial that our council members prioritize the needs of our town above personal agendas. Cottage Grove requires counselors who will devote 100% of their time and energy to serving and saving our community. Is that my buzzer?
Yes.
Oh.
Go, you can wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. Their indifference has solved nothing. Furthermore, I must address the actions of Councilmember Mike Fleck. His decision to vote for a resolution that allows unvetted, unhoused individuals to reside on our in our public spaces without contributing to the community has put the tax-paying citizens of Cottage Grove at risk, and it has driven our property values down. Being Director of Community Sharing is a huge conflict of interest, considering grants received for this are based on a head count. So the bigger the head count of homeless, the bigger the grant. Despite all the free provisions paid for by taxpayers, the living conditions in these camps have created a serious health and safety hazard for all the residents of Cottage Grove. The well-being and security of our community has to be a top priority by our elected officials. We need council members who are committed to upholding the values of transparency, accountability, and integrity in their service to the people of Cottage Grove. I urge the City Council to consider these concerns seriously as you deliberate on the recall of these council members. Our community deserves representatives who put the best interests of Cottage Grove taxpayers first and work tirelessly to address the challenges we face. The disregard and indifference to the needs and wants of the taxpayers has to stop, and this recall is only the beginning. Thank you.
Patrick Oncliffe. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Anloff, lived in Cottage, well, I've been a taxpayer at Cottage Grove for 35 years. Never been to a city council meeting, had my head in the sand for 40 years. Pretty disturbing. Oh, by the way, I speak for many people that couldn't come down here tonight. It's really unfortunate that the taxpayers, and I'm not sure how effective these meetings are, because from what I understand, there's been plenty of these and apparently people aren't being heard. There's been no compromise to what people are asking of you folks in this town. It's unfortunate that I guess my question for you, and I know you can't answer it according to this forum, but why aren't these reckless decisions put up to a vote for the people that live here? Like, why don't we have the ability to vote on the ability to make these decisions that are reckless and potentially legal problems, natural consequences? I guess I just don't understand why that is. And if you're listening to me now, I hope you would consider that. I guess that's all I got to say. I just feel like I needed to come down here and say something. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes. We can take care of that in concerns of council. Public hearings, I see none. Consent agenda, none. Resolutions and ordinances, none. Business from City Council. Item A, receive direction from council regarding matters of real property negotiations. Community Development Director, Mr. Mongan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this evening, prior to the special meeting, during executive session, staff presented the written offer received on Lot 13 for the Cottage Grove Industrial Park. Pursuant to rules of executive session, no decisions were made in that meeting. At this time, it would be appropriate for the council to provide direction to staff. It is my understanding that there's some outlying information that the council would like to have before considering this item again. To confirm that that would be some information regarding the tax rates or taxable value of some of the lots in the area, and then the existing debt service. So at this time, no further action is necessary as far as I can tell. But at a future meeting, staff will return with that information for further discussion and a decision for direction.
Item B, city manager performance evaluation. On July 16th, 2024, on July 8th, 2024, the city council held an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the city manager. Council's evaluation resulted in an overall rating of satisfactory and higher. The city manager employment agreement, section 5, performance standards and evaluation states, employee will be evaluated on the job performance and ability to meet established goals and objectives after 6 and 12 months of employment and annually thereafter when otherwise deemed appropriate by the city. After 6 months of employment and subject to a satisfactory performance review, the annual salary shall be increased by 3% of then current base salary. After 1 year of employment and subject to satisfactory performance review, the annual salary shall be increased by 3% of then current base salary. The recommendation is that the city council award city manager Mike Sauerwein a 3% salary increase based on his employment-related performance evaluation and determine an associated effective date. Cost depends on the changes approved by the city manager, for the city manager by the council. Any discussion? No. Counselor Flack?
Well, I will just say that we met in there. We had, I assume that the overall ratings are public at this point, right? In the packet. Yeah. So basically, you'll see that we're kind of all over the board on that. As Counselor Savage likes to mention often, that she likes to score in the middle of the road for folks that are doing a good job to give them opportunity to improve. I actually took that tack myself. So I will say quite often I gave satisfactory marks when actually I think the city manager's done a great job. But I did want to kind of clarify because I think consistency from our previous evaluations, this might seem different. I think this is just the fact that we're all new in this position, and I think the city manager is doing a good job. With that, I guess I'll move that the city council approve the employment agreement and increase a salary by 3% based on his performance.
It's been moved and second. Any more discussion? Counselor Drew?
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding what we're approving here is that the city manager had a satisfactory performance evaluation. What's already in the contract as far as pay, given our difficult budget times, is not what I would choose, but it's already in the contract. And if what we're saying here, I just want to clarify, is that he's doing a satisfactory job for 6 months in, that's what we're agreeing to.
Counselor Urban?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I think our city manager have been very pleased with how he's conducted himself and stepping into a difficult position. I also share the sentiment that if my sentiment coming in would be that would not, if I were in his position, I think I would say I would not accept that. I'm going to wait for a year. However, I don't know what the legal ramifications when you have it in a contract are. So I guess I would seek guidance on that. But considering the cuts that are happening, the potential additional cuts, that's where I would come in with it. But I'd like to understand the ramifications of that before I cast a vote.
Counselor Dreher.
Mayor, Council President, I actually did seek legal counsel and asked about this. And our legal counsel, Carolyn Connolly, confirmed the question for our council is essentially whether the performance evaluation was satisfactory. Given that pretty much all of our marks were 3 or better, that's satisfactory. And at the end, we ranked it satisfactory. The contract itself says, subject to a satisfactory performance review, the annual salary shall be increased by 3%. So I did confirm.
Any other discussion? Mindy.
Mayor, would the maker of the motion consider an effective date, stating an effective date in the motion?
Whatever's appropriate for the 6-month period. So if we're past that, then prorate it back to that 6-month period. That date of 6 months on the job.
Do we need that in the actual motion? The actual date? Ms. Conley?
I'm just chiming in to say, yes, please do accept a friendly amendment to the extent that a motion has been made to add that in. And if it hasn't, then just whoever makes the motion, just say, as of the 6-month anniversary. Unless somebody happens to have that date at the tip of their tongue.
Ms. Roberts?
City manager start date was January 22nd.
So 6.
I-
I certainly accept that as a friendly amendment as the second. I don't remember the second.
We have a motion with the second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreher,
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Counselor Merriday,
Aye.
Counselor Savage,
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Aye.
Counselor Stemmett,
Aye.
Mayor Solsby.
Aye. Unanimous. All right. Concerns from council. Counselor Fleck.
Well, where to start? This has been a tough year for sure. I have spoken many times about trying to keep reason in our process up here. I know a lot of folks are frustrated with the homeless situation. I will share, I am too. The homeless situation has become very tough, not only in our city, but our county, our state, and the country. There are multiple studies that I've cited on my website, counselorfleck.com, for anybody who's actually interested in what's going on. Where the lack of housing is directly correlated to the number of homeless folks. We don't have enough housing. Our city's working on that. We lost a huge opportunity. I don't think you guys realize there was over $1 million of state shelter funding that we potentially have lost now from an agency that was willing to come in and hold folks accountable. And what I don't think a lot of folks realize is if we had only managed sites, we did not have any unmanaged sites, then folks would have to choose to actually follow the rules or not stay there. And that means that if there's an available space, they would not be able to stay anywhere in our town. What a dusk to dawn will do, once again, also on my website, would mean that our police department's going to end up having to move folks out of the spot every day. Our public works folks are going to have to clean up after whatever's left every day. And we're going to have folks in our other parks and library and other public spaces during the day when they're not allowed to stay in those other sites. I'm sorry, the dusk to dawn also faced a legal challenge in Portland, which was never resolved because Portland decided to withdraw their ordinance rather than go through and fight it. So while I understand people's frustration, I ask that people be informed. I've said this in the last couple of meetings, is at least understand the issue. Even though the Supreme Court threw out Grants Pass, the Oregon legislature still passed House Bill 3115. You can shake your head no, but read the information, folks. We're trying to also manage, the legal standing of our city. I don't know how else to say that. But what I will say is the reason we lost St. Vincent de Paul is because of what's been going on in this recall process. And it's interesting, I've actually stayed pretty quiet for the most part because, you know, to be honest, I love doing this, but it's not the end of the world. It's a huge time commitment. And I don't think most people realize that I'm actually appointed to 4 other committees, boards on top of this job. This is a huge undertaking for folks who receive an awful lot of grief when they're trying to do what's best for the town. This is a pretty tough situation. And what's happened is all of this negative feedback has made these folks choose not to do this. Some of that feedback is pretty appalling. And I guess I'd like to share some of that with you. We had a comment in our last meeting about we don't want vigilantism. And then a half a breath later saying we need citizen patrols to help enforce the laws. How is that not vigilantism? How is this not escalating a situation that is already becoming out of control? Let me also share some comments that were shared with me from Facebook. I have to admit, I'm pretty discouraged with Facebook anymore. And so I'm not on most of the nasty sites. But there's comments here about, you know, basically a threat to an older person about they will go to the furthest extreme if they ever say anything like that again in the short life you will have. Well, I'm hoping the public will actually pay attention to this. There's another one talking about somebody being human trash, short raw. And Bonnie, you are not a citizen of Cottage Grove. And I guess that's what I'm a little bothered by is the comments. I'm going to share this because she's just leaving. She does not live in Cottage Grove. She does not pay our taxes or our water bill. And I'm actually offended that she would go off on this. No, you may not. And you can, and you can leave. So some of the other comments here make threats that go on to say, the day your heart fails to pump can't come soon enough. You quite literally have nothing to offer the world. Is this what we want to be as a community? Is this really what we think is what's best for our town? Folks, this has got to stop. This cannot continue. Do you ever wish you could kill somebody, bring them back and say, see, stop expletive with me? You know, it goes on from there. This is not okay. I don't care what you believe is right as far as any issue in the city. Making threats because somebody's standing up for what they believe is not what America's about. We are a free society. We have a First Amendment right, but that does not include threatening people's well-being. I'm appalled at this. But you know, I also know that I've lost my temper a couple times in this process. And so I guess what I'm asking for is all of us to take a serious look at where we're at and decide if this is really what we want to be as a community. Sure, all of this hate scared off a nonprofit who is going to put $1 million+ worth of services in our community. This is a bad thing. Our job is to actually bring resources into the town, not lose them. This is just so sad for me. I really think that this was a no-brainer decision and would have solved 90% of our problems. And you can agree or disagree with that, but do it respectfully. Be an American and support others disagreeing. And at the ballot box, vote what you believe is right. I totally support that. I don't agree with the recall process, but here we are. And so I'll certainly honor whatever the outcome of that is. And I hope you will too, whatever that outcome. But I've spent 22 years in one role or another up on this dais. I've given my time, I've given my energy, and I've given my heart to this town. And this breaks my heart that we've lost this opportunity to actually make our town better. This has got to stop, folks. I'm not against you, but I am against this sort of behavior, and I will not stand quietly by and allow this to continue. Thank you.
Counselor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a question earlier that said, why didn't we get to vote? Why did this not go to a vote for the people? And that actually really makes a lot of sense. And I think that's probably why a lot of us are frustrated. So the Ninth Circuit Court made a decision on a lawsuit that happened in Boise, Idaho. And that affects, I think it's 9 of the Western states. So now suddenly, none of us got a vote. We all had to now comply. Then we had House Bill 3115. Again, we did not get to vote. We kind of got told this is what you have to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, we can't afford this. We don't have the funds for this. And yet we have to take care of it. I mean, it makes sense to help folks that have grown up here, that live here. I wholeheartedly believe that. But at the same time, it's like, we don't get to pick and choose. We kind of have to follow the law. I found it interesting that there was a comment that I'm trying to climb the political ladder. That's news to me. So I didn't know that. What I do hear is, hey, we are not happy with this. We don't want to pay for this. And so I have found avenues to have conversations at the state level and say, hey, listen to us. We can't afford this. It's managed site. I mean, we can all see that the managed site worked better than the unmanaged site. I think we all are in agreement that what is happening is not working, but that's because there's no funding for it. We can't afford it. So it makes me sad that we've just lost this huge funding. They would have taken care of everything. And then we could have been out of that we don't have to cover it. However, now that we don't have that, I mean, what are we going to do? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. We don't have the funds to do any of it. So I'd love to have conversations and be able to figure that out. If folks are mad that they didn't get a vote, I would suggest writing your state folks. 3115 needs to be revisited. I've been trying to talk with lots of people about revisiting this. However, I now under the understanding, there was conversation that the League of Oregon Cities may have supported House Bill 3115. I did talk with the executive director over the weekend, and she confirmed that this was going to happen with or without the League of Oregon Cities support. What was being proposed was actually more restrictive than what the Ninth Circuit Court was requiring. And so with the League of Oregon Cities getting involved, they made sure that what is being put out there for 3115 is exactly what is being asked out of the Martin versus Boise case. So it is not more restrictive. It is just exactly the same thing. So it's kind of like having a seat at the table to make this awful thing just a little tiny bit better. Home rules should be exactly where we're at. We should be able to decide for ourselves. And we didn't get that opportunity. And this is totally tough. But here we are making the best decisions that we can with the information that we have, while also trying to keep us out of lawsuits. So I'm happy to visit with anybody. I'm totally just as frustrated as everybody here. Kind of feel like my hands are tied. I said that at the last meeting. I am frustrated. We all are. But let's come together because we're stronger together and see how we can move forward.
Counselor Dreher.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the public hasn't seen the letter we have in front of us, but essentially St. Vincent de Paul spent a tremendous amount of time researching a business plan so they could close the unmanaged camps in our community and open managed ones where there would be accountability, access to services, and likely the people who are not from here would leave because they no longer have free reign to do whatever they want in poor Ward 2. Now, St. Vincent de Paul has rescinded their offer. They are withdrawing their offer to provide homeless services in Cottage Grove. So some of y'all, our mayor included, wanted to do the bare minimum. And now we have options that are actually off the table. We have driven out the largest, most successful homeless service provider, who does not want to do business in our community anymore because of the recall, because we need, as they say, your community needs to determine how you collectively want to approach helping the homeless in your city and to arrive at a uniform strategy. I agree. What has happened here is beyond the pale of normal policymaking. Let's talk about what's best for our community. It is metastasized, however you say that word, into something, a monster. This group, St. Vincent de Paul, was coming to bring over $1 million in resources and services to our most vulnerable people, not to help me. I have a house, I am fine. To help people like the woman I met in the cooling center, who looked me dead in the eyes and said, have you ever thought about killing yourself? Because I do every day. And all I could do was buy her a popsicle. These are the people who are being hurt by resources, by this vigor, resources being pulled out of our community, businesses not wanting to do business here. We've talked about our industrial lands. How come nobody's buying them up? There are reasons, unfortunately, that people do not want to do business in Cottage Grove. It is disappointing, shameful, and frankly embarrassing. Some of the other reasons St. Vincent de Paul doesn't want to do business in our community was appalling to me. Collaborative partnerships with elected officials are critical to the success of our programs, and we are concerned the services we offer do not currently have the necessary support. We received phone calls and visits from our neighbors adjacent to our Eugene service station, expressing surprise, discomfort, and disappointment in the tone of recent inquiries from a city councilor on behalf of the mayor. One such inquiry even disrupted a planned volunteer event. After multiple offers of tours and open communication with elected officials, we were disappointed with the nature of the visit and the lack of communication beforehand. Given the circumstance, we feel it would be best to give the city time to recalibrate and determine their preferred steps forward. St. Vincent de Paul secured funding based on their reputation. They are the only service provider who could provide services in our community. The city's not equipped for it. Carry It Forward is not able to take any state or county money. And now they won't even do business in our community. Words matter. If you thought homelessness was really bad before, now we just lost a homeless provider who is going to have accountability, manage sites in a place where the disc golf folks, they wanted their course to be relocated. This is the brainchild of our brilliant director, Stewart, and we have just thrown it all away. So I hope that we can move forward and re-engage in this conversation and not lose future investment in our community and opportunities.
Anyone else? Counselor Meredith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all to the citizens that came out and speaking your hearts and your minds. I too have spent a lot of time at the homeless camps. I've spent the nights there. I was knocked down, not by a member of the camp, but by a local criminal who was eventually apprehended in Idaho. I don't like to step in dog poop. I don't like to stumble through piles of garbage, etc. That is the result of an unmanaged site. I've urged the council to take up this and have community process, and it's been very slow getting the cart up the hill, but we had a great work session. We had a good partnering with St. Vincent, and then it kind of went sideways. So on that note, I hope that we can come together and figure out what is the next step. I've heard of dusk to dawn. I haven't heard what happens from dawn to dusk. So I would like to hear the plan. I would like to see a specific plan put forward by Save the Grove PAC or Community Strong or anything that lists out the specifics. How would this work? Let's look at it. We got to do something, and right now we're just stuck with the trash heap, and the neighbors are still going to have to deal with it. And so I too think we missed an opportunity that we could have benefited from. It may not have been perfect, but it's certainly vastly better than what we have. I would also like to mention a few comments that I heard from citizens. I agree we'll have a very large cleanup cost. Um, the behavior is definitely very bad. We need to get that under control. Again, unmanaged doesn't work. I do think that the people would have left. I've spoke to a number of residents at the camps. Well, I'm not going to follow any rules. If we have to go there, I'm leaving. So that would have been a benefit for the community. Property values, I am a taxpayer and I've only seen my property values go up to the extent that my homeowners raised up to $400 last year based on the increase in property values. So actually my property has no value other than it's my home. I'm not looking at it as an investment. It's where I live. I'm not interested in what it's worth because I'm not going anywhere. I can't think, there was one other thing, work together, and especially like Ms. Myers saying work together to find a solution, that's essential. I also wanted to comment that Councillor Savage, through her connections that were labeled by the opposition as political climbing, did bring us over $3 million in infrastructure for housing that will be developed south of town. About the recall, people always ask me, why aren't you being recalled? And for the life of me, I couldn't tell you. I've tried to do my best in doing my job. I do want to reflect on what Councillor Fleck said. I didn't know you get stuck on committees when you get on the council. I have received 3 additional assignments and I can barely keep up with my other activities, plus the council meetings that you have to prepare for and read through reams of documents. This is pretty mild tonight. Usually it's like this. And you have to ask the questions. What is this all about? What am I agreeing to? What's the purpose? I was just as surprised as you when I got a bunch of mailers. And yeah, why would realtors care about what's going on in Cottage Grove? Well, they actually provide the answer in their literature. A home investment is the biggest one you'll probably make in your life. And when there's uncertainty undermining the city's ability to address the issues that matter most for you and your family, that's not a good real estate market. So why would they object to a recall? It's bad for the real estate business. That's what their interest is. I don't know, one of these said it was from the Cottage Grove Realtors, and then underneath it said the Eugene. I don't know how all that worked. I didn't ask for it. I don't think anyone being recalled had any idea where this comes from, but it's big business. It's big business, and they're watching their pocketbooks. Believe me, realtors. So I'm not ever questioning the right, but I am questioning the reason. I hope that, again, that the people that have the opposition will come up with a plan to put forward about managing homelessness. I hope you will make a decision that will be best for your conscience and the community at large. Thank you.
Counselor Stennett.
Thank you. I'd first like to thank the young people in attendance for behaving with a degree of decorum and civility that apparently a lot of the adults were unable to. I'd like to thank the people that did leave for for showcasing the issue of being willing to speak your piece but not listen. I'd like to thank Councilors Fleck, Savage, and Dreer for continuing to serve your community to the best of your ability, honorably in the face of a recall. As the subject of a previous recall attempt, I know how disheartening and disappointing and sad it is to be personally taken to task for societal problem that no one's been able to solve. It is unfair. Councilor Fleck, you've given as much of yourself as anyone to this community for a long time, and you should be commended for it and not dragged through the dirt. Councilor Savage, it was my honor and privilege to support your appointment to this council. I did not do it because you recently lost an election. That is not the way this works. I did it because you were the best candidate for the job. That is also true for Councilor Dreer. I voted for you because you were the best counselor for the job. This recall is not going to solve or end homelessness in Cottage Grove. That should sound too good to be true because it is. Nothing is ever that simple, especially not this issue that we've been talking about here almost monthly for 3 years. This recall is not going to save our town because our town does not need saving. Our town needs to come together, bring all available resources and ideas together to find a solution that is, as it has been doing for well over a century. Cottage Grove always rises to its challenges. I was expressed as many reservations as anyone about unmanaged camping. And those reservations have sadly proven to be the case for so many people. It has been terrible. We just ran off our best chance at someone to manage this situation. This is it's deeply disheartening to say the least. All this recall is going to do is push more divisiveness, more deception, and less community cooperation. There is no plan for after the recall. Not that we've heard, because people won't stand up and take accountability for the recall. There's one name on this incredibly concerted effort. Are we to believe that there's only one person involved? No. There is no plan for after this. There's no plan for the chaos that's going to come. All we will have done is run off 3 dedicated public servants with integrity and intelligence. And this is a volunteer position. It is a thankless job. We've mentioned the other committees, but that has nothing to, it's thankless at best. At worst, it's this right here. And if you run people off, if you subject people to personal attacks for standing up and trying to do their best on behalf of this community, then no one will ever do it again. No one without an agenda will ever attempt to stand up here. That's where we're headed. Can we still work together? God, I hope so. Thank you.
Counselor Flack?
So I guess just for clarification, Councilor Mary Day made a comment about nobody knew this was happening. I actually did, and I want to be straight with folks. I had reached out to a political consultant for advice who represented the Realtors Association. Cottage Grove had merged in with the Eugene Group. So I did know this was coming. I just want to be straight with folks that I did. I don't want to sit here and be quiet and not acknowledge that I did know this was happening. I was not involved in any of their process at all. I had just reached out for advice, and this was the result.
Well, I was actually hoping to speak to people individually before public, but since it was, I guess, brought up in this meeting, I read the withdrawal letter today and was pretty surprised to see I wasn't named, but I was referenced because I did go to the surrounding businesses, I think last week. And so I immediately called or reached out for contact information and placed a call with Bethany, and Jack, who had presented, was there when she called back. And so where is this coming from? To my view of the interactions that I had was far different than what's being represented in this letter. And so I said, this is pretty not cool to say that. I had reached out on my way up. It was on a whim, where I just thought, okay, all those things, you go from an unmanaged camp to managed camps. You drive out most of the, probably I would surmise, most of the problem folks who are having behaviors. The people that are attracted here because it's lawless, let's just say, that's the wrong element to have. And I think St. Vincent de Paul solution addressed that. Not perfectly, but pretty nicely. The strategy of not allowing stuff to accumulate. That's another huge concern. We did a whole work session on this. That's pretty favorable to this. What I had to weigh out, and what I went to follow up on, was to see it for myself. What is the impact on the surrounding businesses and neighborhood? So, and I had this conversation. I think if there was any fault that I'll own, it's that I didn't call ahead. I actually didn't plan on stopping at the St. Vincent site itself. I walked by it and I noticed people congregating there, and it was prior to the doors being opened. I walked up, I looked in, and there was what appeared to be workers there that noticed me as being different, I guess, and said, "Do you want, like, hello?" And I said hello, and they opened the door. I said, "Hey, I'm kind of trying to understand the operation of the site and its impact on the surrounding and the person that operates that." The Dust to Dawn site, right adjacent to the service center, welcomed me in, and we had a conversation. I candidly shared what I had just learned from a phone call earlier that morning to the car dealership across the way. I parked in a vehicle accessory business, talked to them, talked to the auto parts store, and I was making my way down to then go try to talk to neighborhoods to do my due diligence, to just have how does it work here? What's the impact? And I was trying to find folks that had been there long enough in the community, that were prior to the community or the service center, and then had been there since the Dust to Dawn site had opened up. And, just to add clarity, yeah, there was no intent to malign or to sabotage anything here, which is what I kind of get from this letter, which was what bothered me so much. So I called them and talked to them about it. They were, I think, understandably already on shaky ground with the community support, and took it as an aggressive act. So yeah, I guess if you have other questions, I'd be happy to share more details, but yeah, that was, I would have, what I was hoping is that we could start with the Highway 99 site, let them operate that, come and handle our folks here in town first, provide those services. In the last meeting, when it came out, I heard two things that were really discouraging to me, that weren't consistent with the first two meetings that I've been a part of, which was that, we have to do, we're only interested in this if it's both the disc golf course site and the Highway 99 site, and that there was no option for compensation back to the municipality for the opportunity cost of the land, the use of the space. Those were two things that I had honed in on, as being able to get going back in a better direction. So I was pretty surprised to see that they had pulled out. I thought we had more opportunity to discuss options. And that's in my conversation, it's like, look, we do need to coalesce as a city. And I hope that this doesn't hinder the relationship. So I feel I've left the call favorably. I had connected with Jack before, and so obviously tensions were high. That was a big decision to pull out. But yeah, it was not what are undermining this thing. It was literally, I think I owe it to the constituents to go and see on the ground and talk to people. What is it like? Tell me your experience. So I saw your hire, so I wanted to share that. Be happy to talk about it more, because I figured when I read that, I was like, oh, that's what they're stirring up. So. Now that's. Yeah, I'd be happy to if you're interested. I did bring my notes. So it's a complex situation up there. I mean, you've got this proximity. It's not exactly the same as Cottage Grove situation. It has some overlaps in that we are somewhat close to a rail line that can facilitate travel that way, I-5. And I went up there because that was when I looked up Dust to Dawn site, St. Vincent de Paul, to find that's literally what that site's called. I think they were referencing a 710 site. There wasn't admittedly a whole lot of thought leading up to it. It's like, hey, I got a window of time. Can I get somebody else to ride with me and go, and we can collaborate and ask questions? So that's where I wound up. The feedback, I don't really want to take a ton of time here, but from the businesses on 99, it started north. They were saying it's come in waves. I want to qualify this. It's people that were experiencing issues weren't directing it specifically at this is manifesting because of how St. Vincent runs their operations. I think there's a like a nexus of layers of folks that come around, and some of them are involved in the Dust to Dawn, some of them are accessing services, some of them want nothing to do with that, and so they kind of surround. So it's hard to say, so that's my preface. It's hard to judge. Oh, sorry. It's hard to judge what is a direct result of a particular group's operation. The things that were coming up were the auto dealership was talking about, broken into a soda machine that they did report to the police that they had to replace, screaming at all hours, people shooting up in plain view, their customers being scared off, that folks are getting in their cars, their employees' cars to sleep. I asked them what their recourse is, what do they do about it? They said when they call the police, they typically refer them, unless it's a violent situation, to Cahoots, and everybody praised the Cahoots response. They have just kind of stopped reporting things at this point. They're feeling a bit defeated because a lot of times they say just nothing happened, so why report anything? They said, please don't have them come to your town, was their I spoke with the finance manager and the floor manager. I won't say their names because I asked if they would be willing to be spoken of. They said they'd have to ask the owner of the company. There was 2 people I spoke with at the SUV supply store. They observed people coming and going. They're just walking out into the middle of the road, a lot of honking from people driving, and there's people crossing the road, not in crosswalks or just at their own whims. They get discouraged and frustrated, broken bottles in their parking lot, and they're cleaning up glass. Just the, I guess, brazenness of the folks that shoot up just whilst staring at them, and it's very uncomfortable. They say people walking down the sidewalk when they're approaching somebody that's in crisis wind up walking all the way out into traffic. These are just things they were reporting. I asked them how, what kind of communication do you have with St. Vincent de Paul? And I said, is this, that, because they were the closest site to them. You have to understand there's halfway houses, there's sponsors, there's other service providers, there's a lot going on in that area. So it's hard to pin anything on one group. I said, where is it coming from? The car dealership folks, they said, well, what about sponsors? They're like, we have no problem with sponsors. So they were clear. I was trying to how do you know where the problem's coming from? So they had no communication with St. Vincent. Advance Auto spoke to the kind of the front desk people there. They were like, look, we don't really have any major issues with individuals. You know, there's a lot of ambulance traffic going to the site. Every once in a while, there's police presence. He said there's occasional damage to vehicles in their parking lot, but it's like broken taillights, broken, like punched off mirrors. There's, you know, the typical drug use and just mental health crisis. They didn't seem to be super bothered, or that it hadn't really affected their business. So I walked down to the St. Vincent site and I got to speak with the person who directs the Dust to Dawn site. And that was once again, just, I looked in a window and it was like, you know, noticed me different. And it's like, yeah, I'd love to. I had just come with 2 pages of notes that I talked to others. And I was like, so what is the policy in the area? How do you interact with businesses? How do you manage this? And they said, hey, we have a good neighbor policy where we encourage communication with businesses and residents. And I said, well, have any of these businesses reached out to you? And they said, no. I'd actually parked at that vehicle accessory business. And I went back and I said, have you guys ever called St. Vincent? And he said, no. And so I said, well, they just said that they, you know, if you have issues, you can call them. I shared what I think happened was when the person I shared with, I admit I have somewhat of an intimidating presence sometimes, and I came with questions about how do you deal with the things that are going wrong for the neighbors. As it turns out, in talking to Jack and Bethany, that person I talked to when I left, you know, called all around, say, hey, this is what just happened. Somebody just came in. I told him my next stop is to go to the neighborhoods. I want to talk to the surrounding neighbors. And apparently they have a couple of people in that neighborhood that they're in communication with, which I think that's positive, that they're, you know, reaching out into the neighborhood. And was apparently distressed. So I did actually talk to, I think probably 2 of the people that they had reached out to. And I could tell before I even got there that they knew I was there about St. Vincent, which was really, I couldn't figure that out. I was like, that was so strange. Like, I couldn't even have a conversation. There was an assumption leading up from the time that the door was answered. So mystery solved when I was able to find that out today. But, you know, the first, I spoke to 3 people in that neighborhood off of Elmira. And the first one, you know, just had been there 10 years, said it's generally not bad. You know, every once in a while they have an issue. He said sometimes like The Walking Dead is what he referred to. And I think I don't know what the relationship was, but they were fixing a flat tire. He and this another gal, and she had talked about she'd been punched one time, but they weren't super upset about anything. Just like, yeah, it's generally a pretty calm neighborhood. There's people that live here for a long time. I said, well, and I didn't know how long the service station had been there. He said, I've been here 10 plus years. And the service station was already there, but that the Dust to Dawn site had just been in the last 2 years. So I was like, okay, that'd be interesting to hear the impact from service station. You're shaking your head no. The Dust to Dawn element of it. Okay. That's what he said anyway. So he said the last 2 years they've had more negative interactions. He said 300 to 400% increase of like screaming incidents. Not uncommon for people to be screaming and talking all night. It wasn't. Talked to him for a little bit. I said, all right, well, I was curious I said, any other neighbors that you would direct me to talk to? And he's like, oh, this person over here has been there for 30 or 26 years. The person over here, they may not be there. Construction. So he kind of directed me to a few different ones. So I knocked on those doors, and the next two were like, yeah, they basically saw me coming with, and I presumably they were called ahead of time. So the difference was, immediately was like, no, we've never had a bad experience. Definitely recommend working with St. Vincent. They're not bothering anybody in the neighborhood. And it's definitely better than them being in the parks. Then the next couple I talked to, they'd been there 30 years and they had more regular interactions, I think, and they knew a lot of the folks that were coming around. And their approach was to, they would leave cans out for them. They give an account, like if they saw somebody and then with a bicycle that wasn't there, since they knew them, they'd be like, where did you get that bicycle? Let's go get it back, kind of thing. And so that was the way that they were interacting with it. And they were basically just behind the site. Then they recommended that I check out a site that's they feel is really well run, called Everyone's Village. It's off of West 11th. And the guy got my number and sent me a text with the link because he couldn't remember it after that. So we ended up talking on their porch probably for 20 minutes. And left thinking that was a really positive interaction as well. So I didn't have any, what I would say, negative interactions. Really just kind of went on a fact finding what to see for myself. And how that gets spun into this is a little concerning to me. But that's my account.
Thank you, Councilor Irvin. I would like to start by commending you for doing your due diligence. And I think that that is all of our jobs up here, is not just to take things for granted when a presenter comes, that this is the way it is because we say so. And we all should have learned a little something from Carry It Forward, not fulfilling what we thought they should fulfill in a contract. And we've all said that there's been a lot of issues that were not done that was promised to us. And so getting boots on the ground and really hearing, from people that are there daily, I think is very important. And I commend you for that. Councilor Irvin called me on Tuesday. I was at work and just out of the blue said, hey, I'm thinking about going up there. And would you like to come along? And I unfortunately was leaving for a conference the next morning. So I was completely scheduled out. So there was just no way I could get away. But if you think this was premeditated, it was not. It was spur of the moment. He called me, asked me to go. I couldn't. He actually called Councilor Savage.
Yeah, it could only really call so many without it being a serial meeting. So.
And so it wasn't like, oh, the two of us paired up. So that wording on behalf of the mayor coming from St. Benny's, I take some personal, it offends me that that was assumed. And because that's not the way it was at all. Nothing premeditated about this, just doing due diligence. So the conference I went to was the mayor's conference in Klamath Falls, and that was a real eye-opening conference, Oregon Mayors Association. So it's mayors all over Oregon. And I keep hearing that we're all in the same boat. We're all having serious problems with homelessness. Let me assure you, we are not. Those mayors looked at me like I was from outer space when I told them everything that's going on in our city. And so immediately I'm asking, what are you doing? And most of them are dusk till dawn. And we have a line of communication with all the mayors in Oregon that we can all interact. And so I've been asking all of them to send me all of their plans, because I was blown away that when the League of Oregon Cities attorney, which is probably, did you talk to Patty? So Patty was there presenting, And I was all geared up too, because I had heard League of Oregon Cities co-authored this bill. And, I'm thinking, how could League of Oregon Cities, that's supposed to be representing all the cities in Oregon, co-author a bill that could be damaging to all the cities and throw it off on the cities? So I was angry. And I was going to respectfully ask why. And she opened with it. She said the League of Oregon Cities, while was that seat at the table, like Counselor Savage said, that coming in, it was a much stricter bill. And so they tried to dial it back. And so that's was her point on this whole thing. Now, what tells you that other cities are not at the point that we're at all is her response when they were going to do a session for the mayors that was all about every legal proceeding that's going on in Oregon that could be of value for cities to know about. She said that she got a couple inquiries about House Bill 3115, and that while she was going to address it, she did not plan on spending much more than 20 minutes on it because it was not top of the agenda. Because there was a lot of other bills out there that she thought that League of Oregon Cities should go to bat for instead, for the betterment of the city and the city leaders. One of them being how to, it's amazing to me, but it's about Facebook and having a personal Facebook account and having your city account and not commingling them. And I'm sitting there thinking, are you kidding me? This is more important than what we're dealing with as a city with our homeless situation. But that tells you that they are not in the same space that we are in at all. If that was something that she thought she should be going to bat for. And she wanted to know from all the mayors in the room what we thought League of Oregon Cities should be first on their priority list. And of course, I had to speak up and say, 3115 is the most important thing to our city right now. It is what is dividing this city to a degree that we have never seen before, and on this council as well. And so the other mayors wanted me to explain what was going on in our city, and I explained that we started with 12 tents at our city hall, and now then we opened a camp, and I explained our whole history and how we had to close that original 99 site because we ran out of funding. It was all ARPA money, and did the whole thing. And then we have 2 unmanaged sites, and now we are reaching probably a 200-person threshold. And the violence and the drugs and everything that I don't have to explain, overdoses that I just requested from EMTs this morning, because I see those calls almost every other day come through my husband's phone, that it's disheartening to me that that's what's happening in our community. And I feel like we have to do something. As far as Bill 3115, House Bill 3115, I've always thought, especially, well, I personally felt that the Supreme Court was going to roll that back on Johnson versus Grants Pass. And that, of course, as you know, is what happened. And I believe the same thing is going to have to happen with Bill 3115. Cities just cannot sustain this, and states cannot put this on us to have us take care of it. There is just no way that cities can financially do it. And as I've said before, if the state believes that, why is it still illegal to camp on state lands? And so that is something that I asked Patty, and I told her, you need to fight for our cities and get this reversed. And just today, I heard from some of the other mayors, and they said that there is actually a pushback with some senators, and they sent me the letter, and representatives, and they have sent it to the chairman for them to reevaluate. They say that when they pushed this through, it was a very different time. We were in the throes of COVID, that it needs to be revisited. And so I'm hopeful in the next session that will take place. Counselor Irvin and I are also reaching out to representatives and trying to get some pushback on that. I just heard of from today, the incoming mayor of the Oregon Mayors Association, incoming president, that he wants to work together too to help push for that, get all the mayors together to push our legislative session into seriously taking a look at that. And that is why I think that we should seriously, as I've said from day one, look at what these other cities are doing with Dusk Till Dawn. Ashland's mayor sent me an email, and Ashland is a tourism city, as we all know. No one can call Ashland conservative. It's all about the arts. So, but Ashland has a very different take. She says, in Ashland, we created a Dusk Till Dawn site on a lawn area near our Civic Center and police station. It is, as our police chief describes it, an inelegant but meeting the purpose we designed it to meet. That is to give people a place to go so that they don't have to pitch their tent on public or private property governed by our camping ordinances. It has not been without its problems, primarily due to some folks who have mental health issues or addictions, but we are very clear from the beginning that we were not setting up a permanent camp. People have to move out in the morning. We have done some things that we might not have normally done, like allowing people to move off the lawn and over to a strip of public land right on the road. This has kept them from moving into our neighborhood park across the street during the day. We've also brought in a dumpster, hand washing station, a security camera, a porta potty. More recently, we added a picnic table for food and a bear box to allow people to keep their food out of their tents because of the rat problem. We are moving slowly and incrementally in terms of expanding what is available at the lawn because we have very little budget to invest in it. Let me remind you, Ashland is twice our size, so their budget is bigger than ours. We have had some disturbances on the lawn, one that was very serious, but it has settled into a routine, largely because we have a group of volunteers who have come forward to make the site more functional and are greeting people at night, orienting them to the lawn and helping them get off in the morning. We are working to make sure that our police officers are only interacting with the night lawn in the event of an actual issue, rather than being responsible for enforcing the rules. And we made good progress on that. We are now considering setting up a small storage program in partnership with a volunteer group, which we think will help the folks who are trying to get on their feet, as well as reduce the amount of belongings that end up facing the street during the day. I don't know if this helps, but for us, I think it has having it be a Dusk Till Dawn facility has kept it within the bounds of what is workable with the resources we have, both city and volunteer. Also, North Bend, I spoke with her mayor and with their mayor, and she said that they are also doing a Dusk Till Dawn, and they are pretty much exactly our same size. And it's with police and volunteers, and they get them up and they knock on every tent and get them off and on their way. Take them to services, tell them where the services are. Almost every city I spoke with that has been successful in not growing their homeless population and keeping it just to the community has been Dusk to Dawn. And let me go back to St. Vincent de Paul. So I reached out to the city manager of the Dalles because I don't know if you guys are up on it, but the Dalles, the city of the Dalles is suing St. Vincent de Paul because.
Could I interrupt you?
Yes.
That is not the same organization.
Well, they answer to St. Vincent de Paul's Eugene, and
They are two different
okay.
nonprofits.
All right.
Right here.
They answer to, did answer to Terry McDonald, Executive Director of St. Vincent de Paul Society, Lane County. They are located in Eugene. And he has been here several times to try to help the Dalles, St. Vincent de Paul people. And he's since retired, but they all answer to, it is of Lane County. And you can reach out to the city manager of the Dalles and the mayor of the Dalles, and they'll both tell you that. That's where all this information is coming from. So they probably are different, but they all answer. Well, that could be true, but they all answer to the bishop. whose name is, yes? Ms. Conley?
Hi. Hi, thanks. I'm just noticing it's 9, and I understand it's a special meeting, but it also is following the regular meeting agenda setup. And so I'm thinking if you want to extend for 30 minutes, this would be an appropriate time to do it.
Yeah, I don't
And
think we'll need 30 minutes, but I would just like a few more.
I think that's great. So extended for maybe 10 minutes longer?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you,
just
Ms.
want to
Conley.
keep you on. Yep.
I'm sorry? Oh, we still have the report from the city manager. We can extend it for 30 and if we go less. All right. So what he told me is that okay, first I need to start with that St. Vincent de Paul was there for 40 years and they were successful. But after the pandemic, the clientele changed, is what the city manager told me. And he said, and the neighbors will tell you the same that lived around it, that originally it was a lot of single mothers, children, a lot of elderly that were coming there to be fed, and it was truly helpful in the community. And then after Measure 110 went through, they saw an uptick in drug addicts, and so the clientele completely changed, and the volunteers struggled. They were getting assaulted, is what I was told, and that they couldn't control their clientele. They said that they were having problems keeping their volunteers. They had 1,300 police calls in 1 year to that one location. And they were told that it was the city's problem. The Bishop, Liam Carey, finally stepped in and they agreed to arbitration. And so they are now in arbitration. The city actually held 11 meetings with St. Vinny's and to try to settle this. They just could not come to an agreement. So it's still in arbitration, and they actually just canceled their last arbitration meeting. So when they offered to close the site, the city jumped on it to go to arbitration because they figured that what they thought would happen is a lot of the problem would go away. And that's exactly what happened. Everyone left. And they said that they really fully expected to still have those 1,300 police calls just spread out among the city, because all those people would still be there. But they said that their police calls went down to near zero. And that was an exact quote. They said that they have zero faith in them at this point. So while it is, as you say, a different organization, what I can say is that is exactly why Councillor Irvin was doing his due diligence, and anyone that would want to shame anyone for doing that, I completely disagree with. I think it is our job to do our due diligence up here. And, and I just think that we need to reassess this and figure out how we can do a dusk till dawn would be the direction that I would like to see us go, because it's been successful with other cities, and it's time, place, and manner. And Councillor Irvin has really been putting some hard work into some dusk till dawn ideas that I think are worth looking at and seriously considering, instead of just saying, oh, that's too expensive, or we don't have the staff. Other towns are doing it. And just to discount it, which is how I felt from the very beginning. Anytime I would say dusk till dawn, it is just automatically thrown out. And that is my 2 cents. All right. Report from the city manager. Counselor
Um,
Bennett.
Thank you. Did you get a sense of how the other communities are paying for their dusk to dawn site?
They're paying for it out of their budget, just like we are paying for our homeless unmanaged camps out of our budget.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Kind of like 4 or 5 times where you talked about the work that you and Councilor Irvin are engaging in, or are you updating us on his work? Can we
No,
can
he
we
just, he
be
actually.
more frequently updated on what you guys are
Well,
up to?
actually, a lot of this has just happened over the last few days. It happened, a lot of the stuff that I read tonight has come about from the Oregon Mayors Association. And Counselor Irvin was working separately because he kept hearing there was no plans for dusk till dawn. And so he decided to put things down on paper and he brought it to me.
It's strange to hear you speaking on his behalf, though.
I'm
Repeatedly.
sorry?
I mean, I submitted what I thought was a worthy draft for vetting for robustness to the city
Collaboration.
manager today.
Mhm.
I think I started putting thoughts down on paper on the 16th. By the mayor to say, what does this look like to you? The intent is always it's addressed to the city manager and the council. So I hope that we can have that conversation surrounding it once it's, vetted. It looks like it's ready.
Thanks. It sucks to be out of the loop.
Well, we can't really, we haven't even met since I put it together and I can't
He
do
just
serial
brought it in
meetings.
my business and handed it to me. It's not like we were sitting down working on it. It was actually his work.
And I agree, it does suck to be out of the loop.
And we've been out of the loop
And
many
so
times.
I do hope to act in a way that is looping everyone in, that's still legal from a meeting standpoint.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Just to address the issue that Councilmember Stennett just raised. Earlier today, I did receive I'll call it a draft proposal from Councilmember Irwin. It's been a rather eventful day. I haven't had a chance to review his proposal in depth. I did contact him and ask that we get together for lunch later this week so that I have a chance to understand what it is he is proposing. It certainly would be my intent to share it with the rest of the city council. But before I do that, I want to understand what it is that I'm sharing with you. City staff has been discussing, where we go from here. We have some proposals that we'll be bringing back to the council. I'm not prepared this evening to discuss them in any depth, but definitely been working with our police chief, public works, community development folks, our finance folks, talking about some potential policies and some potential plans for moving forward. So more to come. The only item that I really have for this evening is I asked our community development director, Eric Mongan, to talk a little bit about his pedestrian and bike plan. Give you a quick update.
Thank you. In the recent weeks, the pedestrian bicycle plan has reached a point where it's in its, I would say, 3rd or 4th final draft stage, where the consultant and staff are ready to present that to council. It was tentatively scheduled to be at a work session on the 12th of August. However, due to the number of other items on that particular meeting's agenda, we think it's best to hold it on a different night. I've reached out to the consultant, and they're available on Wednesday, the 14th at 7 p.m. It's just an informational work session, of course, like we've had before, where they'll go through that draft of the document to take any additional comments that you have and the Planning Commission has before it comes back in its final iteration for potential adoption. I'm hopeful that you all can be available on the 14th. It's Wednesday night at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. It's during the regular work session time for the Planning Commission, so the space is already available. There are no items on the Planning Commission's agenda for the month of August, so it would be a great opportunity for you all to hear the consultant's presentation of the draft report and to provide any comments that you may have. If you're not able to attend, of course, you can reach out to me at any time to discuss any comments or concerns that you may have. You will see the document again as it works its way through the Planning Commission and to the City Council for potential adoption. So it's not all lost, but hopefully y'all can be available Wednesday, the 14th at 7 p.m. For about 45 minutes to an hour.
Said 7? 7. All right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
And that would conclude my report, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Items removed from consent agenda? There are none. So this meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie. Do you have a report? No.
I thank you so much. No, I was going to say I absolutely don't, but I, have been here and I am available for if there are questions. I do believe that probably they could be addressed in a different forum when unhoused is a agenda topic, but I'm available in here if there are immediate questions.
All right, I see none. Thank you so much. All right,
You're
this
welcome.
meeting is adjourned.
Thanks.